In this video, we're going to be taking apart the Invoice's starter solution that was created by the folks at FileMaker Incorporated. Interestingly enough, Nick Hunter, who actually works for RCC now, is the guy who built this for FileMaker back in the day. And so this continues to be a starter solution that is shipped out with the current product. So this process was initially engineered by Nick with some feedback and input by the folks down at FileMaker. It's an invoicing process where you can add line items to an invoice. The process is pretty interesting. It's pretty cool, and it's got a lot of practical application. And so we actually took this and adopted it into FM Starting Point. So that's why we're shooting the video here. Now, along the way, as we were hijacking it into Starting Point, we found some defects in it. And of course, those defects we improved upon and fixed. So thanks, Nick, for doing a great job. And of course, with Nick's help, we came back in the second version of Starting Point and made it better. So let's dive into this process of adding line items to an invoice or to an estimate and how it actually works. This is fairly tricky under the hood. It's interesting. It's a good process, but it's tricky. So let's dive in. So first off, this video is largely about scripting. It's about scripting popovers. It's about scripting slide controls within popovers. It's about adding related records to your database. We're also going to discuss using value lists to pass multiple field values in a single script parameter. That's not something that's necessarily obvious to most beginning or intermediate FileMaker developers. So first off, a quick overview. I'm going to go to field definitions here and show you what we're dealing with. In this video, we're only going to focus on the invoices data, products tables within this Invoices starter solution. Now, if you're familiar with other FileMaker solutions, aka custom apps, once again, a terminology issue there, you'll have noticed that invoice data is often referred to as invoice line items. In fact, that's how we refer to it in FM Starting Point. So the invoice data is the invoice line items. Of course, one record here in invoice equals one invoice, and one record in products equals a products. And of course, you will have multiple line items or invoice data records for an invoice, or you'll have at least one, but you could have more than one. If I go to relationships, I want to show you what we're focusing on. We're going to focus on the TO right here, these two TOs right here, and this one right here. These four are the only ones that we're really going to be concerning ourselves with for this video. So let me open up the invoice right here and let's dive in. Now let me demo this functionality first so we can see how it works, and then we'll take it apart. So first off, this is the button right here. This button is actually a popover button, and it pops up a popover window right here. Now, by default, this popover window is going to show us all the products that are in our products table. Now, I only have 3 sample records in here, and of course, these aren't very descriptive, but each one would have a price, and you actually can select this item and add it to your invoice. That's pretty cool. Now, some customers start to get lots of products in their system. You can actually go in here, and if you know what you're searching for, you could type in Hoagie, H-O-G, press the return key, and FileMaker then filters the information right here to give us just the matching records. So that helps us filter down this list to something manageable. We can also look for services that are loaded within the same product database. So it's not just products, but also services. Now, this button at the top is pretty slick. This allows us to, on the fly, add a new product to this database. So I can say magical widget, and as you can see, we have a magical widget that turns water into gold coins, and it's $45. Now that's a pretty good deal. We definitely want to mark this up so we make a nice, healthy profit. We're also going to notate that it's taxable. Once we're done here, I can say done. It adds magical widget on our invoice line items right here. It also adds to our product database right here. As you can see, the magical widget has been added automatically. Pretty slick. So how does all this work? Well, first off, the whole system that we've just shown you operates across these 4 scripts right here. That's it. Now, unfortunately, these scripts aren't commented overly great. Nick, bad Nick. So that's why it's handy to have someone like me walk you through it so we can tear it apart. Now, the easiest way to learn how all this works is to use FileMaker Pro Advanced. Make sure you have the advanced mode turned on, and then turn on the script debugger, and then activate the script and watch what happens. So if I press the button right here, this pops up. Initially, no script was activated, so when I select product, we start to get scripts that are activated here. I can step into and run the script, and then I can, of course, add maybe another magical widget. Now, of course, at this point, a number of scripts fire. I'm going to take the opportunity to show you what's going on here. First off, it's important to note that this button right here doesn't activate a script. It simply brings up a popover right here. This popover actually has a script trigger attached to it. It actually calls this script called popover add product item. Now, what's interesting about this is that when this starter solution was developed, it was decided by FileMaker Inc., i.e. Nick and the team there, that this script would handle 3 different situations. So where you could actually have 3 different scripts, in this case, they wrote it as one script, and then that script will behave differently based upon the situation. Now, some people like to do this in development. Some people like to break it apart. I am the kind of guy that likes to be more verbose and write 3 separate scripts, just the way I am. You actually end up writing more scripts, but when you reverse engineer and take things apart, it's mentally a lot simpler to do that. The training that we're doing here, I try to keep the mental gymnastics down to a minimum. In order to do that, we keep things as simple as possible. This script wasn't really written with that in mind. That being said, selecting the item off the list will also run the same script as well. And lastly, that third situation we talked about, pressing the Done button right here, will again activate that same script. That's 3 separate scenarios. One scenario is here where we create a new product. One scenario is where we've selected an item off the portal to add to the invoice. And the last scenario is where we've just clicked out of the area and dismissed the popover entirely. I'm going to bring up this script and take a look at what we have going on. It's somewhat better to comment all this stuff out, but let's kind of just jump in here. When this script runs, first thing we're doing here is clearing out your previous search if you had one. The next thing it does is it forces a refresh. Now, the reason that this is required is that frequently when you set up a filter in FileMaker, this does not always refresh itself automatically when the filter criteria change. Therefore, frequently it's important to force FileMaker to refresh the layout. It's just the way this function behaves. That being said, anytime you see a perform script trigger refresh, which are in here a couple of times in different places, this is specifically designed to force that portal to refresh with the latest information. Now, right here is where it gets interesting, and we have our 3 possible scenarios. Remember, we said that we call this script from 3 different buttons or situations. Well, if we call the script because we're actually dismissing the dialog, there won't be any script parameters that are passed to the script when it's activated. And therefore, it will actually start the if statement here. Ignore this else if statement here, and then we'll exit the script right here. And what's also interesting is that there are 2 slide controls right here. Slide control 1, slide control 2. Each of these slide controls have a title. Slide control 1 is called Select Product Panel. The second slide control is called New Product Panel. So what we do right here is we actually determine if the new product panel is the front panel. That's a Get Layout Object Attribute function in FileMaker. Its front panel is a reserved string that tells us true or false whether this object is in the front panel. If that's the case, then we go down through this situation right here. If we're actually creating a new product, then we execute this scenario right here. Now, I want to point something out real quick. We have this variable called selected item. Now, this variable is a local variable, which means that we can define it during the course of the script. Once this script is finished, the value will be dropped out of memory of FileMaker. This is a temporary variable. We define it, we use it in our script, and then we chuck it out the window when we're done. Now, what we're interested in capturing is the product name and the idea of the product. We set those into a value list, and we assign them to $selected_item. Now, what do we mean by this? Well, this gets into passing script parameters. Once again, this is a little bit more advanced, but understand that one script can call another script, right? When one script calls another script, a single block of text can be passed from the first script to the second script. That's called a script parameter. Now, if you have lots of different values that you want to pass, maybe 4 or 5 different fields or values, or maybe you want to say it's someone's first name and their last name, and then there may be city, state, and zip. Well, that's all going to go as one block of text, which can really make for a mess. You're going to want to be able to individually identify those items. Well, how do you do that? One technique of doing that is to use the list function. The list function allows you to actually build a value list. In this situation, we press a button right here. We actually call this script. We also pass a script parameter. We actually build the value list on the fly right here. We can say, take the product name right here, and also grab the product ID number. That's the key field inside the system. You put both of those in a value list, and they look like this. Because we have a value list, each line represents a different value, and that value might be for a different variable or for a different field. This is pretty slick. So that way we actually have one block of text, but we can actually load into it multiple values. Of course, the flip side of this is that we have to retrieve the information out of the system. And so how do we do that? Right here. When we get to the point where we're actually going to create the new item, we're going to go to a field in the portal. That's an important tip. So in this case, we're going to grab this variable position 1, then we're going to load it into this field, which is on the invoice line items product description. Then we're going to go get position 2 from the variable, and we're going to load that into the product ID field. And next, we lead the user to the quantity field. So let's watch this activate. I'm going to run the script debugger real quick. I'm going to say that I want to create a new line item. I'm going to select the hoagie item. So we're calling our script, and we have the script parameter right here. I can click there, and now we're running the script just like we talked about. We come down, that runs a trigger to refresh the portal to make sure that we have a fresh update on the portal. Then we see that it's not empty. Then we set the script parameter that's passed from the button over here to the script parameter over here, and we capture that using the getScriptParameter function, and we drop that into our variable. Continue forward. It's going to skip all that code, skip this scenario here, skip this scenario here, and we've talked about those. Now we're going to reset right here, this pop-up window, and then reset this slide panel to the correct panel. Then it closes the popover. Now, because it has closed the popover, it's rerunning the script. So the script is actually calling itself. Because the script calls itself, when the window is dismissed, it's going to exit out of the scenario right here at the top. Remember, 3 different scenarios can call the script. So that skips one, and then right here, it exits. So now we're back to the original script, which was processing all of this. Then we say, step into the field on the portal. It has to be a field in the portal. Next step, go to last record, which is what we just did. Next, we insert the product name, and lastly, insert the product ID, which you actually don't see here. The product ID is actually hidden from screen, but it's there invisibly. And lastly, we drop the user into the quantity field. So this is a pretty slick setup, and I wanted to walk you through this. Hopefully, it will give you a little bit of an idea of some of the cool functionality that's part of this FileMaker Starter solution, but also keep in mind this exact functionality is built into FM Starting Point, which is why this video is here in the Starting Point section. This is really good material. And of course, we're demonstrating how to kind of reverse engineer a process we didn't write. That's a terminology that you're going to see as you do more and more FileMaker work. You're going to reverse engineer or take apart something that someone has already built. If you bought a car and you took it home and then you took the car apart, that's reverse engineering the car. And so that's kind of what we're doing here. We're taking it apart to figure out how it works. And we can learn a lot from doing that.